It's the Sod Pod, brought to you by Grassland Agro. The Sod Pod. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Sod Pod. I'm joined here today with the usual suspects, Sean McMahon, John O'Loughlin, and David Corbett. My name is James Freeman, and on today's episode, we're going to actually have a good chat about the Teagasc Grass10. We're very proud sponsors of that, going way back to 2017. Boys, you were all involved judging over the years. Give us a flavour of what happens behind the scenes there, and what are you looking out for?
Yeah, so we're proud sponsors of the Grass10 event, as you said, James. It was great to get on farm this year and see how the judging panel critique the farmer, what they're looking for. I was very lucky to be in Adair this year on a farm that is expanded in recent years. Young farmer, growing a lot of grass and really focusing in on soil fertility, and he's doing a very good job on growing clover. I think he's about 30% of the farm does in clover. Really good operator, but just goes to show you how hard it is to maintain that level of clover on a farm. But yeah, it was nice to get a good insight. We were focusing on the grassland side of things, so looking at the soil samples, where the farm was at, where have they come from, and what have they done, what sort of a plan have they put in place, what sort of pre-grazing yields are they grazing mid-season, what they're focusing on, what their main KPIs is. So really, really good to get out on farm, number one, but see, I suppose, the behind the scenes and how they critique each farmer on the programme. John, you were on a couple of more farms. I was only on the one, and Davey, you were on a few others.
Yeah, so we've all done our turn judging this year, and I suppose basically how it actually happens from a behind the scenes point of view is that John Maher sends you a text or an email the night before.
Oh man, John.
And then you show up on whatever farm. He'll give you a vague idea maybe what weeks we were going at it, but I know I'm only sagging John there because he's from Kilkenny. But what we do is we arrive onto the farm anyways, and we all introduce ourselves to the farmer. We walk around then, look at the different parameters, and I suppose the competition has very much evolved as well, James.
Yeah.
Previously was who could grow the most grass, and now there's much more of a sustainability focus. It's really to the forefront. So I suppose clover, we've talked a lot about it in episode 5, but clover is massively important in the whole scheme of things, and making sure that it's actually on the farm rather than maybe saying we plan to actually incorporate clover. So it's very important for anyone thinking about entering the competition this year. Then biodiversity is massively important, and the environmental side of it, and then health and safety as well. Colin was there from FBD, looking at the health and safety side. Obviously we did, and Brennan then from the Journal. John Crowe actually done a day with me as well when I was doing it. Liz Hyland, Bridget Lynch. So there's a good team, and there's a good blend of different disciplines, and everyone I suppose has their own area. On our side, it's the soil fertility, and we kind of look at maybe where the soil fertility is now, maybe what sort of a journey the soil fertility came on, how they managed their nitrogen, especially last year's competition. There was a real focus on spring nitrogen because we knew that nitrogen prices were escalating, and looking if the farmer had a clear strategy of what they're going to do around spring nitrogen. So, it's really interesting, and it's probably a privilege for us to get to see some of the best farmers in the country, because there is a quite...
Johnny, on that there, how does a farmer go about getting their farm represented or judged on the Grass10?
Yeah, so a farmer can go about getting entered into the competition by looking out for any of the announcements of the launch of the competition, which is roughly in June or July. It's kind of varied a lot because of COVID, unfortunately, so it's hard to put a specific date on when it's actually going to launch for next year. But basically all you do is you enter, and you look at the guys in pasture base then can analyse your figures and look at your nitrogen use efficiency, and there's all these parameters that come into it now. Look at your average number of grazings per paddock, and then look at your average pre-grazing yield as well. So they're real key KPIs in the screening process, David. But obviously on our side it was mainly soil fertility. I think you were down in Wexford, Dave.
Yeah, I was down in Wexford with Bridget Carroll in Ballycarnew, and I was with Philip Tyndall in Enniscorthy. So it's great to see how farmers have evolved, I suppose, with changes with legislation and what's required in the environment, and reducing emissions and becoming more sustainable. Yeah, it's just great to see the evolution on farm. And we talk about sustainability, and I suppose ourselves within Grassland Agro, we have our soil sustainability programme two of the major factors that we always talk about with sustainability is environmental and economic. And I suppose one of the major factors that we kind of fail to think about or talk about is the social sustainability. And as you say, John, like down to the safety on the farm, and health and safety is a major player with the Grass10. And even going as far as the farmer themselves having time off farm and making time for themselves, like, and that's a really important factor going forward in a family farm or in the farming business, that you are making time outside of the farm.
Yeah, and that's really important. And even, I suppose, on the economic sustainability, Brian Ducey there from AIB, like, he'd be going through grass, because there's such a strong link between grass and reseeding and the economic output of the farm. Like, it's really interesting. He'd also be telling some good yarns as you go around, and he's a great man for the TV references as well. Some of them are a bit more obscure, like, you must spend a good bit of time watching it, but like, really, really enjoyable process, and great to see some of these farms, because I suppose really, when you think about, part of the program is actually to get the message out there on grass measuring. So these people are really ambassadors to bring more people into grass measuring, because I suppose we've talked about a lot, to call a spade. There's been very poor uptake in grass measuring. And Sean, I know this is your specialist subject, and tried to propose to a plate meter before, but on a night out. I suppose it's one thing that we are probably failing at, to attract the dry stock farmers as well. And I was absolutely blown away. I was above in Mead on the farm of Aidan Maguire, and he was doing some unbelievable stuff. Really good person, really good character. And I hope that his story will help to attract more farmers into grass measuring, especially on the dry stock side of the house. But
because, John, we get hung up on, and look, it's fair enough, like, it's an expensive, it's expensive to be bringing in meal or bringing in feed on farm, and we do get hung up on it. We be getting hung up on how much meal we feed per livestock unit, or feed per cow, or feed per hectare. But like, we can't really be talking about feeding 500 or 1,000 kilos of feed per livestock unit when we don't even know how much grass we're growing on the farm. Like, we're talking about imported feed when the majority of the feed is actually coming from inside the farm gate, Sean.
Yeah, look, as John referenced there, I have a passion for grassland management and and especially the Grass10, because whenever I was starting off or just graduated from college, I was working in the Teagasc office in Cork, and I was with John Maher on the Grass10 team with some of the meetings setting up new.
You were the one that got away, he told me.
I wouldn't say that, but
he's back again.
It's it just, I suppose, look, giving farmers the platform to show their farm off, because we know that it's not just soil fertility, or it's not just safety, or it's not just breeding. The farmers questioned on nearly every management practice that they're doing, and it was a fair eye-opener for me that, obviously that our section and our judging criteria is on the soil fertility, but I definitely took a lot from the top operators, as you said, John, because that's who they are. They're the best in class, and that's who we're judging, and that's who we're critiquing. So especially on the clover, like, I learned a lot on Colin Doherty's farm that day. Yeah,
definitely, they're the best in class of what entered, like, to others. But like, fair play to them for having a go and actually saying, right, I want to take on the role of being an ambassador and trying to get people grass measuring, because there's a good bit of work in it, like, between different farm walks, and they're going to get drawn in to do different things, and some people really enjoy that.
But yeah, and you have to make it work, John. Like, all these farms, like farmers in the Grass10 competition, like, they are all measuring grass. And again, going back to the social side of things, like, one of the biggest reasons I think why farmers don't measure grass is just time. They don't have time, and I know you often say you don't have time to bless yourself and whatnot, like, but like, there's a lot going on farm, and like, measuring grass, it could potentially be time taken away from elsewhere,
But that's one of the key things, I think, to having the farm events and getting on farm and getting as much information out of the farm as possible, because this is how we promote the industry, whatever, if it's a dry stock or a beef or a dairy enterprise. We have to promote the social sustainability. We have to promote farmers having time. Davey, you're a good man for the tag rugby there in the evenings. You're not out calving cows.
Careful what you say now, John.
When he grows up, he's going to get into contact rugby.
Do you know, but like, it gives farmers a platform to show off what they have. I think it's a great platform. it's grown in popularity over the number of years. It's going to keep growing, and the more people that can attend these events, the more information that you're going to come away with, and then the potential you have to implement the small changes can make a big difference on your farm.
Yeah, and to call a spade now, like, and this is a controversial opinion, but like, it probably has not worked so far, because we've only 1,100 people grass measuring. You know, like, we are fully behind it, and we need to do our bit to try and promote it as well. But like, there's been a massive push towards grass measuring. Like, you see, you know, the Grass10 courses, and you also see the Journal doing their own course. Like, and when you see Aidan marketing saying, you know, that it has life changing impacts, and you're kind of like, oh, you know, that's a big statement to come out with now, like, you know, life changing. But it probably does, in the fact that, you know, you focus on the things that are going to make you money on farm. That gives you better quality of life, and it's really drawn that into focus. But I would probably argue now, and this is another controversial opinion, that a lot of farmers, even if they're not grass measuring, they have a good handle on their covers. Maybe, you know, even lads who aren't on pasture based, they could tell you a 1,500 cover. And I'd also feel that there's a lot of guys who maybe aren't necessarily measuring every week that are managing, which is important too. Now, in the eyes of pasture based, they're not recognised as managing grass, but they are actually doing it. And for us, that's equally as good. But obviously, from Teagasc's point of view, they want to get as many people onto pasture based as possible. But once you're managing it or measuring it, and some people, if they're in the same farm system, they're so in touch with their farm,
so used to it, yeah.
Do you know that they know that how many days they can be ahead? You know, because you see it with the real top operators, the likes of John Mack. He was comfortable enough to bring his cover down to 140 per cow during the main season, because he knows his farm that well.
But he knows his farm that well because he knows the ground and the soil would perform, because it's at the good indexes for P and K, it's at the correct pH, and all the key messages that the Grass10 program is promoting, the farmers are shit hot on all them key points.
And the biggest thing I took from it, the environmental challenges that are there now in reducing emissions and improving water quality. Even with Bridget Carroll there in Ballycarnew, that's a catchment in itself that's very heavily monitored, and the water quality is very heavily monitored. But you can, like, I suppose there's a lot of talk there recently about these targets, and like, is the only outcome going to be to reduce the national herd? Is that the only way we're going to come around it? But you can see on these farms that they have super measures in place, and they are reaching these targets. They are meeting water quality targets, and they are meeting emissions targets. And I think it's very important to note that it can be done. And like, with the targets that are in place, the overarching thing is that there is going to be a food supply, and there's not going to be a food shortage. So it's just to make note that these measures can be put in place, and the security can be there. And it's just to, I suppose, trust the process in what we're trying to achieve.
There's a bit of a story there behind trust the process, but we won't go into it today. Sean is delighted.
Hashtag.
But definitely, like, and listen, that debate about the food supply has certainly been brought, and the food chain and food security it's been drawn into focus now again because of the unfortunate events in Russia and the Ukraine. And really, when you see maybe the consumer in Dublin that's worrying about the carbon emissions, or they're so privileged, to be able to worry about this fucking vegan whatever has X amount, but the lack of education around the carbon intensity of these products versus the product that we have in Ireland. But one of the fundamentals, because we have such a low carbon product, is because either beef or lamb or dairy, is because of grass. And listen, we probably lost our way a little bit in the last couple of years in relation to higher nitrogen inputs. But for us, and the key point is that we have to promote and engage on sustainability so that we can make sure that there isn't a reduction in livestock numbers.
But industry is engaging, but I think we have to step it up another bit, because like, I'd slightly disagree in what you say with what the Grass10 program isn't working as well as it should be.
No, I don't know. It wasn't the Grass10 program. It's that the grass measuring in general.
Well, grass measuring.
Like, if there's only 1,100 people and there's 70,000 farmers.
Yeah. I suppose the idea of grass measuring, that if some farmers need to be taught how to set it up, Some farmers have to know how to set up a plate meter. It's not straightforward, let's be honest. But once you get used to that process, and once you get used to the figures, it will benefit you economically. And a lot of farmers is driven economically. That
shouldn't be a barrier. Like, you know, there's plenty. I know Teagasc are running courses, Farmers Journal are running courses. Like, we have our own agronomy team that are absolutely super at grass, managing grass, giving advice on grass.
It's amazing, Dave, the simple things that you could show a farmer. For instance, in the springtime, I was out with a farmer and relaxed approach to getting the cows out, and the ground was well capable of getting out. And, you know, made the decision to go out. Week later, the protein had jumped from, say, 3.3 to 3.4 or up 0.1. Do you know? And it was only when it was pointed out to the farmer.
Same with beef farms, Johnny. Like, even the live weight gain, like just getting out to grass. To be fair, dry stock farms probably for the most part are under stock, so there's plenty of grass there, do you know?
Yeah, but like, listen, I think the key thing here is that why aren't people measuring grass? Like, and I know Paul Newman did a study on it before, and there was time, but listen, a lot of it is how to measure. Because, like, I agree with you. There's the benefits of measuring grass are indisputable, but we only have 1,100 people doing it on a regular basis, and that's what I'm saying is that how can we attract more people in? You know, and why are the genuine reasons that they're not doing it? And that's getting to the bottom of that. And the Grass10 is designed to help promote, to get people in, and it's doing a brilliant job. Its wings have been clipped probably by COVID as well. Like, part of the on-farm stuff is really important. Like, so John Douglas or Joe Dunphy and John Marrs on the farm walks, the winners, going through it, and, you know, trying to get the interest there is huge. But just to actually get people, when they leave that farm walk, they hear all the benefits, to get them to put it into place in their own farm.
Yeah, and we really love what John Maher and the team in Teagasc are doing with Grass10. It's something we've really engaged with over time. I suppose probably felt lucky enough for John. He hasn't got to celebrate too many Kilkenny All-Ireland hurling victories in his time since that, but at least he gets to celebrate the Grass10 winners. Look, we're going to move forward there now. We're right up on May. It's a real busy time on farm. What do we need to do to make good quality silage for the stock on the farm, John?
Yeah, we need to be thinking about our first cut now. So organising a contractor, because harvest date is critically important. All the nutrients to be done now, and we've talked about them a lot earlier on in the time, but making sure that we cut in the right weather conditions is critically important as well. Probably resisting the temptation to go for bulk this year is going to be difficult for a lot of farmers. Making sure you have the quality for the stock that you have in the farm is really important. So for dry cows, there's a bit of a euphemism to gather up any old silage at all, and I know Pat Corbett will be actively encouraging lads to go for dry cow silage, because you get 20 bales an acre, less diesel, and
rushes of water, John. That's where the money is. 20 beeps.
Yeah.
But in serious, lads, the quality of silage, good quality silage, cannot be underestimated, because if we get a bad spring and cows have calved down early, say in January, February, can't get the grass, what will set them up is high quality silage. And if you think of it, if you can make 75 DMD silage on the 20th of May, by the 1st or 2nd of June that's gone down to 70, by the 10th of June that's gone down to 65 DMD. The lower DMD you get, the lower the potential intake that animal has, the lower the quality, and the less litres the cows will produce, or the less, say, gain kilos per day or per week, whatever measure you want to use, the less they're going to. So silage quality, regardless of what system you're in, it needs to be paramount, and where we're going to get that quality is first cut silage.
But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, like, it's gone past the stage now where like how much nitrogen you put out is not an issue. Nitrogen has gone out, but the sugars and the nitrates are two major ones that can be tested and probably should be tested every year. But this year, 100%, I think every farmer should be testing their sugars and nitrates, just to make sure.
Is that a big job, Davy?
Not at all, James, no. So look, it's essentially just going out, taking a random few snippets in a silage field, getting a garlic crush and just taking sap out of that silage, James. So you're testing the sugars with a refractometer, you're testing the nitrates then with a nitrate strip. So look, ideally, well, no, you don't want high nitrates in your silage, because that's going to affect your preservation and the fermentation of that silage, and straight away that's having an effect on your quality. And then the sugars, then obviously you need your sugars to feed your lactic acid bacteria, which is driving on that fermentation process. So it's very simple. I know our own agronomy team are doing it for our own customers. If you want to get in touch with them, 100%. I know Teagasc would do it. You can probably go to numerous labs around the country that would test it. I think for the year that's in it and the price of silage and fodder, it's going to be critical, John.
Yeah, definitely. Like it has to be done. It's an easy job to do if you have the kit. So like you have to have the tools actually to do the job, and as part of the sustainability program we do it for every single farmer, so they ensure that they preserve the silage as best as possible, because I suppose one important thing is that the silage is made in the pit. That's where it does the fermentation. That's really, really important. So making sure that we have it going in with a good enough sugar content and no free nitrates to buffer that pH drop is really important. But I think just in relation to maybe the other part of what we do is actually doing the yield on the silage is really important, so that you can actually figure out how much silage you've secured, and with maybe 10% feed losses you can figure out how much of your winter feed budget you actually have. And it's actually really important on the beef side of the house, and we do the tech docs as well, but the Adam Woods, in fairness to him, is really strong on making sure that beef farmers actually spread enough nitrogen to grow crop of silage, because we could be in serious bother if we're looking at a fodder deficit, Because
even just to compare it, John, when we talk about, say, silage and grazing, silage is probably up on 150% efficiency of nitrogen, and that's the same then for P's and K's, are in around.
Yeah.
So like there is more offtake than input, and the grazing situation is probably only 25%.
And just explain, Dave, how you can get 150% efficiency, like.
Yeah, so it's essentially like we're fertilising a 5-ton crop. We found there last year that there was probably on average about 3 ton extra dry matter coming off per hectare, and that's where you're, I say 2.5, say over your 5. 2.5 ton over your 5, and that's giving you 150% efficiency. So you're actually...
Where's them nutrients coming from, the extra 50%?
Just coming from organic matter, John. That's been mineralised, been broken down in the soil. You're literally tapping into your reserves. When we talk about an index 3 or 4 for P's and K's, that's your reserve in the soil, and that's been tapped into. And also your organic matter, that's been tapped into as well. So it's pulling those reserves. So as you said, we're measuring the yield in order to replenish those reserves after that cut is coming off.
The nitrogen levels is very important this year, because some farmers was planning on going with maybe for instance a bag of urea, and then that went to a bag and a quarter or a bag and a half. They went later, maybe a week or 10 days later than they would normally go, whether it was a decision that they made or whether they couldn't get the stock on time. The nitrogen levels, I know there's a rough rule of thumb is 2 units per day, but that's very, very weak. It's very farm specific, depending on your location, depending on the amount of rainfall, etc., that you would have got throughout from, I suppose, whenever the fertilizer was applied to when it was cut. So very, very, the cost of producing silage this year has increased. We can focus on quality all we want, but if it's high in nitrogen, it's not going to preserve, and we all know what happens.
Black silage, pit of black silage dung, listen, there's another big caveat in all this is the weather, it's grand to say we'll all cut our silage on the 20th of May, but there's only so much a contractor can do, it's a big challenge, to get around, and if the weather breaks, then it gets into an even bigger problem, trying to get around to all the work. But listen, we always said it, have a good relationship with your contractor is really important. They're part of your farm, how they're peer on your farm.
But we were having the conversation about lime last year after the first or second cut. Rather than having 2 people coming, one to load the lime spreader and then one to spread the lime, if you have a good enough relationship, get the person who has the lime spreader to come over. If you have the loader, fill it yourself. Job done.
Yeah, and even leaving the keys to the tractor and they can fill it themselves, if you're away, but just that, to be under pressure cutting silage, that because it is key to get it done now. If anyone missed getting the lime out early on, I suppose you get a good shot of nitrogen, and just important to get the slurry back out then as well. But definitely really important to get that job done if it hasn't been done already. There's been so much nice about it, Dave, and you've been on a personal campaign, vendetta. Yeah.
Right, lads, we'll call it there. So just a couple of takeaway points. Teagasc Grass10, it's key to share best practice and learn from each other, all anchored around grass measuring. Get out and walk that farm to help farm the future. Silage management, first cut silage is so important. Resisting the temptation for going for bulk, wait for that quality. Test the sugar and nitrates. Silage is made in the pit. That's where the fermentation happens. Mind yourself out there. Farm smart, farm safe. Hey, thanks for listening to the Sod Pod. We hope you enjoyed it. To find out more, head over to www.grasslandagro.ie or check out our social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube. That's all for this episode. See you next time.